Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Sarah and I make videos about movies, vintage shopping, and running an online store. Today I wanted to talk about Pray for the Devil. First, the title has nothing to do with the movie. I guess they thought it was cool. It's about a young nun that is trying to pursue becoming an exorcist. That's really what the movie's about. The trailers don't show that at all. And I think had that been the main premise, main idea, the plot of the movie, it would have been a much, much better film. Instead, the movie starts with a young girl in her room and she's praying, clearly frightened, and her mother comes to her door and starts knocking on the door, softly at first, but then more aggressively and violently. Cut to her, we assume it's her, as an adult, running into a huge building. And there are priests walking in and out, nuns walking in and out, so we assume that it is a religious facility of some kind, not a church. And she goes in, we sort of follow her on a day-to-day basis. We're kind of learning about what her routine is like. She has to go to see the psychologist and she shares stories from her traumatic childhood. She believes that her mother was possessed by a demon and that is why she was abused as a child. She never explicitly states that she wants to learn how to become an exorcist. She never states that outright throughout the entire movie. She sort of alludes to it through the comments that she makes and the things that she does, but she never actually says it. She often refers back to those memories throughout the entire movie, and they seem to really drive her forward. In this building, she works in a supportive capacity, sort of like a nursing role. There are different levels to it, but if someone believes that they are possessed, this is where you go to get processed. So this is where they do a lot of psychological and physical testing to rule out other conditions before they can forward your case. So there's a whole infrastructure in place here. The fact that they have a psychologist on staff and she teaches some of the classes there, also great detail. Her character is really like a touchstone throughout this entire movie. She's the one who brings in new ideas. She mentions specific people and places and events. She's the one that keeps the situation grounded and asks the pertinent questions. And there just wasn't enough of that to go around. There was a lot of scenes that we don't understand until later. For example, when she first comes into the building and there's a bunch of priests that are heading into the lower levels and they're being instructed by someone, and she winks at one of the priests and he kind of laughs at her, like silent laughs at her. I'm like, what is going on? And then later on you see her sort of sitting in on classes and nobody says anything. Everybody sees her there but doesn't make a big deal about it. And then you have the nun in charge, I'll say, because I don't know what her role was, who wants to dissuade her from doing any of the things like asking questions about exorcism rites or any of that, or sitting in on the classes. And the priest who teaches the class disagrees with her and thinks that it would be better to equip her with the tools that she may need in order to defend herself, for ominous reasons that he never really explains and they don't really go into. Maybe the point of her being the main character is that she could be anyone. She could be one of thousands of people. There's nothing about her story that is so unique and so different from hundreds of thousands of other women's stories. And that may have been the point. But I was trying to figure out, what is it about her? Does she perceive the world in a way that's different from other people? Does she have skills or abilities that other people don't have? And I just didn't see any of that. Through her caregiving role, she ends up bonding with one of the afflicted, who is a very young girl. Unlike in other movies that involve the church and possession where they make a real effort to trace back the person's activities and events up until the moment that their friends or family felt like they were acting differently or that they could possibly be afflicted. Instead, they just take people as they come in and then sort of evaluate them from there, but they don't really seem to be making an attempt to research the order of events that led them to be there. Or if they do, that is entirely out of our view. So, or we're supposed to assume that happened before they got there. I don't know. She ends up bonding with one of the afflicted, who is a little girl, and I don't know if that was because she was very young, because she was a little girl. The only other patient that we see her caring for is an elderly man. He doesn't speak, so she doesn't seem to have the same type of interactions with him than with this little girl. And so she really bonds with her, gives her some candy, and I guess feels a lot of sympathy for her in the situation. And that becomes the catalyst for her to be more vocal and involved because she really, really wants to help this little girl. Out of everybody who is suffering in this place, in the meantime, in between time, she's given permission to sit in on the classes officially. So instead of coming into the classroom the same way she always does, she walks across the front row, which I noticed that. She walks across the front row in front of everybody to sit at the front, to sit where she normally always sits instead of just walking into the class from the back. The priest who runs the class is like, you guys may have noticed a new student here. It's she's not an official student, just an observer, whatever. We don't know where in their training they are. We don't know if they're at the beginning, in the middle, or getting close to, graduation. And I think that also would have helped us understand their level of expertise, especially when it comes to events that happen later on in a movie. They try to perform an exorcism. It does not work, and he has to interfere. So she runs in there, just speaks to this person who's afflicted, and it seems to help. After that, she feels empowered in a way, and of course she's like reprimanded, and they're like, you can't do that, and you're not trained, you don't have the education or experience or anything. And I'm like, no, you don't. You really, really don't. But she really feels like she's tapped into a way of thinking about it that other people haven't, which I thought was kind of interesting, but also reveals this really impulsive and arrogant nature of hers. I'm not going to even call it confidence, because we don't even know how long she's been doing this. We do know that she is new to this facility, that she used to be at a convent and then came there, but we don't know how long she's been there. She could have been going to classes for a couple of weeks and now thinks that I'm an exorcist now, Anyway, so one of the priests who is studying to become an exorcist is having trouble at home. He believes that his younger sister is possessed, and they can't get her case seen because of X, Y, and Z. So he asks her if she will support him when he goes in to perform an exorcism, keeping in mind that it did not work in this previous case. And that was best case scenario with the supervisory priest there. Like, so you're under supervision, there's cameras, and all of these other like firewalls in place should something go wrong. So they decide to do it, and the exact same thing happens as in the first one. They think that everything is good, that they made some headway. Before that even happened, I was just like, let's just get to the end. Let's just see what happens at the end of the story, because it just didn't feel authentic to the characters. There were way too many plot holes. We didn't know enough about other characters. And if you think that seeing how a character responds to a specific event is going to automatically develop their character, it doesn't. because some responses are just universal. So after they did one of those and it didn't work out, she was like, okay, I'm just gonna go back to where I came from. So she asked to be sent back to the convent, and I'm like, oh wow, really just scooting past the consequences of your actions here. Besides a little tear here and there. The little girl ends up coming back to the facility because she's not as well as they thought she was, and at that point, people have died. I mean, did. I don't mean like they fell into a coma or something. I mean, them people got burned alive. Another huge plot hole, because how do you explain to the family and friends of the medics and the drivers and the priest that was in there, how they died? How do you explain that? We're at a level 10. We're at a level 10 right now when people die really violently, and we're assuming that this facility doesn't operate in a silo and everybody just knows what it is. And if this happens, then oh well, that's just like part of the job, and that there are consequences to your actions. Anything goes. Anything goes. And I did not like that, because it didn't make sense for the story or the characters or anything that was going on. It was just like, so we're just gonna heighten the stakes here. We're just gonna increase the risk here and increase the urgency. With death. She's taken back inside and is taken to the basement. More priests die down there. It seems like very inexperienced priests are being put in charge of things that require someone with a lot more experience. Near the beginning of the movie, there were a couple of slides about the increase in the number of people afflicted or were thought to be afflicted by demonic possession has increased. So a school had to be created in order to teach some priests how to perform the rites of exorcism. Sure. But people have died, though. To me, it would be different if we were at a level 1. Then you can have the inexperienced priest up there. But when you have to take somebody down to the basement and multiple people have already died, I expected for more experienced priests to be there or be on call to be there. Instead of just basically like security guards, because they didn't have no power at all. The armor was missing that day. There's a lot of missing pieces to the story that really would have made a difference. The fact that she somehow exorcised the demon from this little girl, ended up possessing her, and her somehow exorcising herself through the use of holy water was not believable at all. You expect us, the audience, to believe that all it would have taken is a dunk in some holy water? You out of here. No, that was like somebody waking up from a coma and saying the whole thing was a dream. That was really lazy. They tried to like make it seamless, because at the beginning of the movie, where the psychologist is teaching the class, it's about the building that they're standing in. And she mentions very specifically that in the basement of the church was a huge fountain filled with holy water. So when she goes down there and she becomes possessed by a demon and then falls into the fountain, it's like, oh, now I'm no longer possessed by this demon. Get out of my face. She wakes up. I really thought she was gonna like wake up from a coma or something, because afterwards they give her a fellowship to study the rites of exorcism. They're gonna fly her out so that she can start her studies. And everybody is happy and healthy. She's getting rewarded and accolades and being praised for her bravery and whatnot. And then the movie ends with her in a car and they're sitting at a red light, and all of a sudden the driver like turns around, gives her like the dead-eyed glare, and then she's looking out of her window, so she doesn't really see him looking at her. Ooh, spooky. And there's somebody standing on the sidewalk while people are walking in either direction, staring at her. Ooh, spooky. So she turns back, sees him looking at her. She reaches for her cross, and I don't know what she's finna do, because she looks back and suddenly the other person is like in the car, and boom, that's how the movie ends, with a jump scare. Guys, we are missing so many things from the story. Character development, There were so many plot holes. I would give this a 2 out of 5. So many inconsistencies. I really couldn't get over it. I was too busy thinking about something that had happened previously to even really give what was currently happening my full attention. For example, why is her hair white? Her hair is white. And hair is like a running theme throughout the entire movie, because one of the things that her mom would do, which she flashes back to frequently throughout the movie, is her mom combing her hair gently at first and then more violently, like yanking her hair out and stuff. And then it turns out she has the exact same comb that her mother would use to comb her hair, and she's like staring at herself in the mirror while she's combing her hair. She finds like a hair in her eye. There's a lot of hair related stuff here. It's so striking. It would make sense if, like, I don't know, if for some like supernatural reason her hair turned white or something like that, but not that her hair is just goes from being brown or red. The color in her flashbacks is like a greenish yellowish color, so it's hard to say exactly what the shade is, but it's dark. It is not white. That was something that was just like, that you never got an answer to, that you were like, are we not looking at the same person? Is this not really her? For a second, there was some confusion there, and it really took me out of the story. So I know that's like small, but it mattered to me. Thank you guys for watching my movie review. I really appreciate you guys spending your time here, and I'll see you guys next time.